We're having some great conversations right here at the MPE Live TV booth. Come join us. Welcome to MPE Live. I'm joined here by Dr. Ruth. Can you give us a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dwayne. I'm Dr. Ruth Wandhöfer. I've been in the payments industry since 2004, which is probably one of those legacy dinosaurs. I recall when we talk about legislation here, PSD, I negotiated the first Payment Services Directive on behalf of European banks at the time. We wrote the SEPA rulebook. So I've been in the industry for a very long time. Spent most of my career in Citigroup. And since 2018, I'm independent and I sit on different boards, but I advise businesses, I teach at university, and I'm also working in cybersecurity with Blackwire these days, which is very exciting. So it's a nice combination, payments, security, AI, all of those technologies are coming together, and you really need to understand what they mean, how to implement, and make sure you don't open up more risks rather than, more profit, but more risks. At the end of the day, you want to have a net benefit. So it's a challenging time with lots of change going on.
Absolutely. It's like you've been on the intersection between the digital euro, blockchain technology, now cybersecurity more than ever, especially in the agentic age where we want agents to pay for us, but at the same time, that leaves us exposed to so many different threats and stuff. We've had a great conference. This is day 3 now, and I'm trying to look a little bit forward instead of looking at what we did last year. But I think it's always good to look back. What have you seen last year, or at least in the last couple of years? And what are you seeing right now? What has been the biggest change that we're undergoing?
Yeah, I mean, MPE, first of all, is a fantastic conference. And it's amazing to see that next year it'll be 20 years. I have the pleasure since last year to be the chair. So I have a real deep insight in the program and working with the people behind the scenes. And last year being the first time, of course, I predicted AI is going to be really big. We need to watch out for it. Agentic AI, big opportunity, big threat. But we need to really know what we're doing. This year, it's incredible to see how much we talked about AI. We asked the audience, of course, they already told us beforehand, 60% want to talk about AI. Now, you can't talk about AI across the whole program all the time. But what we managed is to actually split it out into very deep learning sessions. So there's a lot of information we shared this week. And what really came out is, yes, you will have that bright new future of agents doing everything for you, which may even mean that you don't have a checkout anymore because the machines are doing it. But that means that the merchants need to understand how to engage with the bot that has very different triggers and programming than a human. And, then the question comes, data. Am I losing data about my customer? Is the bot really fully representing the customer behind? What about loyalty? How do you ingest all of these things and not lose the customer? Because the customer is nowhere to be seen if you think about that AI bubble in the middle. The other extraordinary thing is last year and the year before, we talked always about payment orchestration because having built SEPA many years ago, that's one of the massive harmonizations we managed in Europe. But there's so many, digital euro, stablecoins, all of these different cryptos that are still lingering around. We have all the local payment schemes that are very successful in Europe. We have the Euro coming through now, more of a cross-border harmonization overlay, piggybacking on the SEPA system and the rails in the back. But alone in Europe, we have so many different options. So will we have a future where the AI agent picks the best option, routes in the fastest way, picks maybe a currency or an asset, digital asset, that might be much more suited to that particular purchase? The customer will not see any of this.
No.
So we are here all total payment geeks, but the customer ultimately hasn't got a clue and just wants to purchase that particular item with that outcome. And what was interesting is talking about payment orchestration, therefore, for days and years, we're now talking about AI orchestration because you see a proliferation of AI protocols, of payment protocols for AI. You see new platforms coming along. So suddenly you see very quickly a new industry building around the arrival of agentic AI, which is fascinating. Again, keeping together, security was a big topic. And I'm very glad to see that our business is looking at the security of the AI agent. Knowing your agent is the new catchword, right? Making sure you monitor the agent throughout the whole buying life cycle, including refunds, returns, and all the scams that normally humans do at that end. And these days, AI bots already, because the AI bot can change. And I told the audience, given that I'm really deeply in cybersecurity and we manage direct threat intelligence to stop attacks before they happen, we would see if an AI bot is suddenly taken over by a rogue command and control server. So you can have a wonderful Dwayne AI bot buying your favorite sneakers every time, and the 5th time, something's happening to the bot and you start to see it on the external threat landscape, and that's when you know something bad's going to happen. The other big thing for merchants is, of course, how do you implement AI? Do you connect it to your treasury system? Consumers, do you connect it directly to your card? As soon as something is too quickly connected to an actual financial value flow, you have the risk that the AI has very easy access to then pull it out. So you need to be very, very informed and take it slow in steps to understand what are the building blocks. Merchants need to put their catalogs, into AI readable format, right? There's so many different pieces that have to be done to pave the ground to then, in my view, test and sandbox some of the stuff. Because what we're already seeing out there, we had statistics, almost 15% of e-commerce is already AI induced. You're starting with AI search, you're being linked into sites. So it's already happening. As soon as it goes far into the terms of connecting the value chain and the money pot, that's really when you want to really sandbox this carefully. And then what you need to do, you have to have direct threat intelligence monitoring all the time, because these things change over time. So it's very different to the old static fraud fighting frameworks and parameters.
Absolutely. It's a truly fascinating topic because it's moving at light speed, right? We've talked about AI for the last 2 decades, and we've seen science fiction movies, but all of a sudden, one company becomes the catalyst in all of this, and we have this chain reaction of all of these innovation. And then for an industry that for the last 2 to 3 decades is still very much built on legacy infrastructures and trying to create a digital transformation, modernization, and technology, now all of a sudden everybody has to be ready. So I think that's a fascinating topic, and we could probably talk about that all day. But I think there's another topic that was really on the table these last couple of days, which is payment sovereignty. We already touched upon digital euro, different alternative payment methods. What is your biggest takeaway from the way that merchants are perceiving payment sovereignty and how they're interacting with it?
Yeah, what was fascinating, we deliberately put that session yesterday at 5:00. I ran the session, it was awesome. And I think we had a full room, 1 hour till 6. So we really did exhaust the conference to the last limit. Geographical, payment sovereignty around the whole geopolitics that we're seeing is a really big issue. And we had merchants represented on the panel. They are very keen to see the digital euro as another independent instrument. But we also had somebody from the Ukraine in the audience who shared the challenges when electricity goes down. So you're very quickly not only into a geopolitical sovereign discussion, but into an operational resilience discussion. And of course, we know with the cyber threats, with wars suddenly popping up left, right, and center, and we also know with the concentration we have in the digital supply chain globally, that things need to change. We had a representative from Canada on the panel who said, years ago, we decided to look after the Canadian payment systems, but then we stopped investing, and that was our mistake. And now we are really catching up. So the big call for action was to invest in payment rails and payment systems, to have more diversity. If you have 10,000 different things, they all end up in one settlement channel, and if that channel breaks down, we have a problem. So you need to think about maintaining and increasing to a certain extent levels of diversity across the value chain. So not maybe 10,000 payment schemes, but maybe several schemes that have then different rails. So we've even mentioned that stablecoin as a separate rail to a Target 2 settlement, SEPA, etc., might be a resilience measure when Target 2 goes down or other things go down. We also said we need soft POS more often, because we've seen even in shops in London, we can't pay, network is down. Well, why don't you have a soft POS? Everybody in Ukraine has a soft POS, right? So a lot of interesting lessons learned and a lot of emphasis around having our stack. Now, the point I threw into the group, which is a little bit of a, little explosion, is of course a reality that when we think about the back end cloud providers, we have a massive global concentration. And this is not the discussion around Visa, MasterCard, and what if Trump pays fees up, puts fees up and things like that. But if you think about those infrastructural processing and data storage things, they are very concentrated. And I talked after the conference with a European cloud provider. I think there's almost not enough awareness yet that Europe has assets, that these assets should grow. Because again, it is not only geopolitics, it's not only if AWS suddenly doubles the price, but it is also the resilience. We've seen the ring go down in my house when that instance came down and everybody was surprised. But equally in Spain, we had total outages, which were all cyber attack driven. And so if the network is down, the payment capability are down, when you can't make payments, and that was really the essence here, the economy stops. So protecting payments is really at least as important as protecting defense. And that was very much a lesson learned yesterday.
I think that's a very interesting lesson. When we're always looking at optimization of the current and existing network, we're seeing the investments being made by the schemes, but also indeed the cloud providers. It doesn't matter if it's Microsoft, AWS, Google Cloud, but the diversity is actually the resilience that needs to be built in. And you took it to another level where I look at both of those. I look at indeed payments, but indeed being a data scientist as well, looking at that cloud provider and saying, hey, wait a second, you're absolutely right? It's like we're building networks on payments infrastructure, but then also on cloud infrastructure. And then we really want to go geopolitical on it, on energy infrastructure that now we're seeing just in one day, it can go up by 35%. What's the impact that you're having on the rest of that? And how are we protecting ourselves against that, or at least have that sovereignty? So I think that's a fantastic one.
Just to say, because we were so used for decades about efficiency and scale, right?
Yes.
And efficiency and scale, ultimately, as an economist, knowing this, and everybody probably does, is of course dictating, optimizing, and sometimes concentrating with different providers. And that's what we have to wean off a little bit for many reasons. And I think this is really the lesson learned. The energy piece was exactly in Ukraine. If energy goes down, they have generators, they have different backups. We can't even imagine this, but you're absolutely right. Right now, energy is going up incredibly. Asia is more impacted than Europe, but Europe has never become independent. If you then think about, lowering sanctions on Russia to have more oil imports, sort of the whole thing crumbles a little bit. There's no coherent plan at the moment.
No, absolutely. I think that's probably a little bit out of my purview, and I think most of us over here, because we like to talk about payments. And I want to talk about 2027 leading into, of course, 2030. There's a lot of different mandates, tokenization. Everybody's trying to plan for the future. We had some predictions last year. I think we've seen a lot of the effect for this year. Based on your experience, your knowledge, the conversation that you're having, what do you think are maybe 3 predictions that you have for next year?
Yeah, I think merchants really need to look at AI because it could fundamentally change their relationship with the customer, their ability to sell. It could well become a platformized economy where merchants have to attach themselves to more bigger platforms that have implemented that AI layer for the engagement of the agents. AI is going to be center stage to understand and pick apart where a merchant plays in this AI journey. And I'm very aware that some merchants are quite concerned, if I don't do AI, will I suddenly be out of the market? I think you need to look at it this way and really get your act together and look at all the different components that need to be filled in and understood. The second one is, I think, on cyber in that context. Fraud is an explosion. We had amazing presentations around the industrialization of fraud. We're all aware of it. It's the underbelly of all the businesses. The challenge here is that we already don't manage fraud very well. We started to use AI in fraud management. It's getting a bit better, but it's not really hitting the nail yet. I think before you then implement any major shifts, which is why I think next year will be more of a year of a transition still, you need to make sure that you have your fraud management and risk management ready for this. And that is really then also looking maybe at different forms of direct threat intelligence that very few providers have, but that will become really important because they're real-time and dynamic. And they basically pinpoint the adversary and the bad code before it hits. So there's a way to neutralize it because you get that intelligence into your system. So I think cyber, apart from all the big scandals over the last few years, cyber will be with us in exponential. We see this in the Middle East. We're protecting clients there. And thankfully, they are still standing, but there are lots of clients that are falling down because they don't have that protection. That is very much then linked into the geopolitics. I think the geopolitical and sovereignty debate will stay with us. I think next year we will have pilots in digital euro, hopefully, where we can already assess some of that stuff. We will see progress with Wero, with other initiatives that are developing. Stablecoins, I think I'd like to see more euro stablecoin activity, just again as a resilience measure. Last year, I suggested at the ECB legal conference that we could actually set up a euro treasury bill contingent that would be the liquidity backup for the stablecoins to have their assets basically held in euro treasuries. Yep. So stablecoin euro treasuries is my plan, and that would be a way to encourage more euro stablecoin activity. because you have the liquidity in the back. And also it might even encourage an expansion of the Eurozone because it is a funding mechanism. So there are ways, if you really start to think out of the box, to make things work better for Europe. Looking at other markets, it may take certain things to the extreme, which is another risk. I think there are ways for us to create more diversity, more resilience, and more cyber resilience for the market. And we need to look out for that.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I want to thank you very much for joining us here at MPE Live. It was great having this conversation. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Dwayne.